All right. So thank you for being here. You're at the Navigating Travel Workshop, and hopefully you'll be leaving this workshop with some practical skills and knowledge to get ready to study abroad this summer or this fall. I wanted to take a minute to introduce ourselves. My name is Daphne Johnson. I'm a program manager at the Study Abroad office. I didn't travel during my college career. In fact, the first time on an airplane was when I got a job overseas in Abu Dhabi. So I hope that I can share some of the knowledge and tips that I've learned since then. And I want to pass it over to Karina to introduce herself.
Thank you, Daphne. Hi, everyone. My name is Karina Daniel. I am a Gilman Peer Advisor here at the University of Arizona. I work with Daphne on scholarships and just outreach to students.
Thank you, Karina. And I also want you all, if you have a moment, to put in the chat your name and what program you're going on, and also the term. So I see there's only two of you. If you wouldn't mind, like if you want to just, this is a really great opportunity to get your individual questions answered. If you want to, oh, there's a third person. If you want to like show your video or unmute yourself to introduce yourself, feel free.
Yeah, I'll start. My name's Connor. I'm looking to go to Barcelona for this summer. I'm currently in Eller as a marketing major, so yeah.
Awesome.
Nice.
Thank you. Welcome. And then
Um,
I see Julian, you put
Yeah,
in something in the chat.
yeah, I'll just talk instead. I'm Julian. I'm looking to go to Barcelona. I'm doing the 6 week class or 6 week thing with two classes. I'm also in Eller studying business management. So yeah.
That's awesome. Maybe you and Connor should connect in the chat to see if like you guys can find some flights together.
Yeah, we're actually roommates. So he's he's
You-
he's in the other room right now. So
nice.
That's funny. Hey Monique, I know you joined a little bit after us, but what we were just doing is introductions, and if you want to drop in the chat or unmute yourself and let us know your name and what program you're going to be on, just to see who we have here. It's a small group, so it's a good thing because then if you have individual questions, we can address them. So when you're ready, feel free to let us know what program you're on. But in the meantime, I wanted to go ahead and pass this on to Karina to cover the slide about getting ready and preparing documents. Oh, I can't hear you.
Thank you, Daphne. Yeah, to kind of get it started here, we really want to make sure that your passport is physically signed and valid for 6 months after departure. And then this is a very, very useful thing to do is you want to make sure that you have digital and physical copies of your ID, visa if it's required, proof of vaccinations, acceptance letters. Insurance is very important, so please make sure you do have that. And then address of where you're going to be staying. Another thing to note is arrival instructions. Those should be printed just in case, your phone runs out of battery or maybe you're not connected to Wi-Fi. So just always having that backup printed copy of in-country contacts, numbers, addresses.
Absolutely. That's really good advice in case, yeah, in case of emergencies or dead phones or whatever that is, to have physical copies as well. You don't want to be caught without that information available. So thanks, Karina, for covering that. And I wanted to move on to some of the best advice that we can share for searching for your flight. Like the first and foremost thing is make sure you've committed to your program. If you're not committed to your program, you might not have received instructions on your flight arrival information. So that's first thing. Secondly, make sure you have received those from your coordinator. If you don't mind thumbs upping, if you received your flight arrival instructions from your coordinator, that would be helpful to know because we're going to be practicing looking for our flights in just a minute. So If you have your coordinator's instructions on when you should arrive, what time, go ahead and thumbs up. And if not, I don't know if there's a thumbs down. I'm not sure, but
There is.
okay. So, and you also want to think about if you're going to be traveling before or after your program. And if you're thinking about that, and that happens all the time, there's options you can either buy. And the reason you need to think about it is because you want to know if you're going to be buying a one-way trip or a round trip. And I will say students do stay after their program very commonly. Okay, Monique, thank you for letting me know that you haven't received your instructions. That's okay. If you are thinking and you know you want to extend your trip, I would recommend extending your trip at the end, because after you're there for, 4 or 5 weeks or whatever in the summer, you're going to be a lot more confident navigating transportation and the country and everything. So even though that might sound intimidating right now, I think with what you'll learn today and just learning and being in country, thanks, Connor, you could benefit from staying extra if that is something that you're interested in doing. So I accidentally went the wrong way. Let me try it again. Give me a second. So first things first is make sure you're looking for the correct dates to find a flight. And when I search flights, I always go to Google Flights. It's just tried and true and reliable. Karina likes Hopper, which is also a really good resource because it's a little bit more visual.
Mhm.
You can also go directly to airline websites like delta.com, for example. The biggest piece of advice I can give regarding as you search for flights is please stay away from those third-party booking sites like Expedia or Student Universe is a popular one. Basically, what they are is middlemen between you and the airline. They take their cut. And if nothing goes wrong with your flights as you're traversing the airport and there's no delays and everything goes great, then great, that's awesome. The problem with those third-party organization companies is that if something goes wrong, so let's say I bought a flight on Expedia or Student Universe and I miss a connection. I'll go to the Delta desk and I'll be like, hey, can you help me go to get rebooked because I missed my connection? The Delta person is going to look at me and be like, I can't help you because you bought this on Student Universe. You need to call them. You need to call Expedia. And sometimes they have call centers that are just like, long waiting times. The customer services are just not great. It's definitely easier to work directly with the airline. And with Hopper and Google Flights, they actually link you directly to the airline when you buy your flights. So it's not like you're buying flights from them. You're still buying flights from the airline. And then I also want to talk a little bit about time zone differences. So for example, a couple of you mentioned that you're going to Barcelona. Let's just pretend your program has you arrive on July 1st. I'm just making up a day. That if you're leaving from either like anywhere on the West Coast or Arizona, you're going to have to leave on June 30th to arrive on July 1st because Barcelona and much of Europe is 9 hours ahead. So you actually might have to leave a day before you have to arrive to get there on the actual designated arrival date. And like I said, we'll have time to practice on the next slide to find flights. I do want to talk a little bit about what happens on layovers. So if you're flying, both of you are flying to Europe, so you're probably going to have a stop either on the East Coast or somewhere else in Europe before your final destination in Barcelona. In that case, your luggage will be transferred planes when you have your layover. You don't have to take them out and go pick them up and put it on your new plane. The airline will do that for you on the way there. And you can always ask the gate person to just make sure, an airline person, to make sure that that's what's happening. On the way back, might be a different story. You might have to pick them up, but let's just focus on the way out right now. It'll be your luggage will be transferred for you. I would recommend to not have a layover under 90 minutes, just because you want to make sure in case there's a flight delay, when you land at your layover airport, people have to stand up and get their suitcase, and it takes a while to onboard a plane. So you want to make sure you don't have a layover. I would recommend under 90 minutes, but I do want to show you all really quick. This is a really cool trick. When I look for my flights, let's pretend I'm going to, I went to Canada not too long ago, and I had a layover in Los Angeles. So the Los Angeles airport code is LAX. So I just Googled LAX minimum connection times. If I'm doing a domestic flight, so if I'm flying from Tucson to LA to, I don't know, to Seattle, 2 hours of connection time. But if you're doing international transfers, it's closer to 3 hours. So they have information about what your layovers should be especially at those big airports. It's longer than 90 minutes, but something to keep an eye out here. So when you're looking for your flights and you're looking for how long your layover should be, take a look at the minimum layover times. And in reality, what do you do during those layovers? For short layovers, if you only have 90 minutes, the answer is you get to your gate as soon as possible so that you know where you are, you know when you're boarding and all those things. And if you have a longer layover of like, let's say 3 hours, you can take your time getting to your gate, eat, shop, but make sure that I always get to my gate first, find where I am, and then I go and do like the secondary type of activities. And then when you buy your flight, the airline's always going to try to sell you upgrades, whether that's like more leg room, like exit rows, or first class, business class, those kinds of things. They're going to also try to sell you the opportunity to like pick your seat. If you want to take more luggage, if you want to buy things like in-flight Wi-Fi, and then flight insurance. Flight insurance is a really great thing to have if you want flexibility with your flight. Like if you're thinking maybe you might stay in country after, but you don't know, you'd be able to change your ticket when you decide later. So it just depends on the insurance and also like, let's say you show up to the airport late because there's a huge accident on the freeway. Flight insurance makes it so that you don't have to pay anything for like those unforeseen emergencies, or just gives you flexibility. So when you're looking at that, it's kind of good to know what your own risk tolerance is and what your like ability is to be punctual and arriving at airports on time, which sometimes you can't really control, right? So it's kind of up to you. Just make sure you know what's covered before you decide if you're going to purchase it or not. And I kind of wanted to take this time really quick to the next slide is just us going to be practicing trying to find a flight and just talking about how to go about that. And I wanted to just kind of see, since you guys are all, two of you are probably flying together, have you searched Google Flights to see any possible flight options?
I have not, and I don't think my roommate has either.
Perfect. Okay. So we can use your program as an example. So do you plan to fly out of Arizona?
Yes, we're gonna do Tucson, I believe, or Phoenix, whatever one.
Okay. Let's start with Tucson. And then you're going to Barcelona.
Yes.
Okay. So right now, is it okay, so we'll just go with Barcelona. Do you know approximately like the first day of your program, do you know when you should be arriving?
Yeah, I believe May 30th.
May 30th. Okay, cool. So I want to probably leave on the 29th, and then I'll show you how to know if you're going to be arriving on May 30th. And then what's the last day of your program? Do you know?
I think it's May 12th. Or I mean, not May 12th, sorry, July 12th.
Oh, July 12th. Cool. And again, this is just as an example. So we'll just use this as an example for now. And then we hit search, and a couple of flights come up. And so you see, you actually will be arriving on May 30th. That little +1, and I see Monique, you're going to Tokyo. You might have a +2. That's a long, that's a couple stops and that's a long flight. And then you're heading in the other direction, so Japan is even more hours advanced time zone wise than we are. So when you see that little +1 or +2, you can hover over it and you can see what day you'll actually be arriving. So as I take a look at this, this one is got 2 stops, but it's a good flight. This one is longer. It's got a long layover in Dallas Fort Worth. So this one is 1 stop in Dallas Fort Worth. So as I'm looking at these flights and I'm looking at the price differences, like if I was buying this flight, I would probably go with this one, even though it's a little bit more expensive, only because it only has 1 flight. Look at the total flight time. You're flying or in airport traveling for 16 hours or 16 hours and 20 minutes versus 13 and 50. That's a long day. And then this one is 20 hours. So sometimes, and it's only, you know, about $100 more. So sometimes I know that like you want to find the best, cheapest flight, but sometimes like a really long travel day is worth spending a little, like having a less of a travel time makes a little bit of sense. Well, then you can do too is like, let's look at Phoenix and see what the pricing looks like here. So here we go again, +1, that's great. We want to arrive on May 30th. It's definitely a bit cheaper and it's only 1 stop in London. Or this one's one stop in London as well for London. So I know airport codes because I window shop for flights. Like this is an activity, a hobby of mine. So LHR is London. So this is actually a pretty great flight that I think would be acceptable. Is there a particular time that you all have to arrive at? Must you arrive in the morning? Do you know?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I remember when I had studied abroad in Barcelona, we did have to meet at a particular time in the morning. So definitely do be aware of that when you
And
guys
that's
get your
pretty
itinerary.
common.
Yeah.
That's pretty common across most programs. And it's also easier to arrive in a country that you don't know in daylight, just less likely that you'll get lost and stuff like that. So considering that this one kind of arrives a little bit later in the evening, I would probably look at this one. Okay, so then let's pretend if I pick this one. Now we're back to the return flight. Here's a decent flight with an hour and a half in JFK, 1 stop, or this one in Philadelphia. So that's kind of like the process of how I look for flights. I'm always looking at like how many stops there are, the layover, the price. And like I said, you know, you might want to look at different departure airports. I don't know how close is Madrid to Barcelona, Karina?
About like an hour and a half-ish.
Were you required to get into the Barcelona airport for your Barcelona study abroad, or did you have flexibility?
There was flexibility if you had arrived like a week prior. A lot of students did that. But for me personally, I just went straight to the Barcelona airport. That is what my study abroad coordinator recommended.
Perfect. All right, so that's kind of like I'm just gonna pick a flight. So let's just say this is my return flight, 2 hours and 10 minutes in London. So let's go with that one. So then here it is taking me back to the like final pricing. And I want to draw your attention to these like bottom things here. You can buy basic economy, but you don't have a check bag. And the check bag is, if you're there for 5-6 weeks, you're gonna want the big suitcase to take all your stuff with you for that amount of time. So when you look at the price difference between basic economy or main cabin, sometimes it just makes more sense to buy the next step up because it includes the luggage and it also has like possible, you know, like a little bit more flexibility with ticket changes. You get to pick your seat for free in this case. Otherwise, you have to pay extra. And you get your suitcase. So that would be like something that would be a flight that I would recommend. This is like a good flight plan, decent time of arrival and departure. But what if you're not ready to buy your flight? I also wanted to call your attention to a couple of things here. You can you can actually track the prices for this, and Google will send you an email if the prices go up or go down. So that's really, really helpful. You can also share it with, like, for example, Connor, if you find a flight and you want to share it with Julian, because like Google sent you a notification that it was cheap right now, you can share it with whoever, or your parents, like if they're helping you pay for this flight, or your family, whoever. So that is really, really helpful. Another thing that's really important to note, so let's just pretend, Connor, you bought this flight and it's out of Phoenix to Barcelona. And you go and talk to Julian, and Julian's like, you know what? I actually want to go a couple days early. Do you want to change your flight to go with me? You have 24 hours after you buy a flight to actually cancel and get a full refund from airlines. So it's kind of like, in case you change your mind, you have 24 hours. I've done that before when I found a really good flight to somewhere for a vacation, and my husband couldn't get the days off. And so I was able to get a full refund. So just keep that in mind. I kind of wanted to pause there. I know, Monique, we haven't gotten a chance to do a sample flight plan for you, but do you, the same exact steps apply for getting to Japan this summer. And I wanted to just take a minute to see if you all had any questions, if you were able to follow along and find some flights that maybe I didn't see, or some different airports or anything like that.
Yeah, I have a question. So when you land, do you like meet up right after, or do you go to like where you're living?
Oh, that's like specifically a Barcelona question, Karina. Maybe you can help with that.
Yeah, so assuming that you're going to land the day before your classes start, you are going to meet with everybody in your kind of program. So you're going to be led to an orientation in the morning, and then just kind of a feel for IAU. You're going to talk to the director there as well. They're going to give a presentation, and then after that, I believe you're not entitled to go to your classes. You just kind of have the rest of the day to yourself.
I think Connor might have meant specifically arrival to the airport. So Connor, it might look different for every program. So some students, like for example, they might have transportation to from the airport to their accommodations. Some students might have to find their own airport transportation to their accommodations. So Karina, do you remember if you got picked up at the airport?
Yeah, so in Barcelona there is actually a lot of public transportation. There is actually taxis as well. So I personally took a taxi. That's a little bit pricier, but I didn't want to get lost. But a lot of students took public transportation.
Yeah, so this is all information that your coordinator will give you. So make sure, so you're going this summer, so your coordinator that you should be looking for emails from is Vasilis. And then I know that he has a couple of grad students that work in our office. Her name is Caitlin, and the other student's name is Anam. They'll probably be sending you information about, like, if you're going to get picked up at airport, what time you should arrive, what airport you should arrive at. So keep an eye out. Monique, and I don't know if you ever, oh, you didn't, you said you didn't get your instructions yet. So Monique, you'll be getting those really soon. And just so you know that we work really hard to try to get these to you as soon as possible. There's just a lot of logistics going on in the background that the coordinators are making sure that your housing is reserved, that your classes are good to go and everything. We don't ever want to send flight instructions out too early, because if they're wrong, and then all of a sudden we have a whole group of students with flights that are incorrect. that's like the worst nightmare for us, right? So that's one of the reasons that it might be taking a little bit longer to get your flight information. So just be patient, but in the meantime, you can start like looking for flights and tracking prices and those kinds of things, even without your exact instructions and just practicing. Any questions on that before we go on to the next slide? We're going to be talking about luggage.
Yes. So I know we are halfway on time, so I will definitely try to make this as concise as possible. But the important things I do want to highlight about luggage is going to be familiarizing yourself with the policies, the weight that you are going to be required through your airline, whether it's Delta, whether it's United. They all have individual policies on that weight. So also another thing to note, when you are looking for luggages, if you don't have one yet, make sure it is good quality. You are going to be, having your stuff thrown around in the carousel on the plane. So you just want to make sure it's really durable, because if not, then all your stuff can go flying and you don't want that. Also another thing, pack very light, because when you are going to Japan, when you are going to Spain, you are going to buy souvenirs, amazing, beautiful clothes, maybe some shoes. You're going to definitely take advantage of being there. So don't bring too much stuff. And yeah, so moving on to personal items. Honestly, this is what is going to be on the plane with you. This is what you're going to have when you're sitting down. So make sure that you pack everything that you need in your personal item. That's going to be purses, fanny packs, backpack, and they need to fit under the seat in front of you. So make sure to definitely make sure it's small enough to fit in the seat in front of you.
Yeah, the airlines will only let you have one. So you can't have a backpack and a fanny pack. And they're going to make you take off your fanny pack and put it in your backpack. And hopefully it fits, right? So one personal item. And also,
Yeah, so carry-on is going to be what goes on the plane with you. Usually that is included. So this is like maybe a duffel bag, a small roller suitcase. That is what's going to be going in the overhead bin. So that is something to keep an eye out for. One thing I do want to recommend is to bring an extra duffel bag inside of your backpack or inside of your carry-on. That's what I did. So that way, when I was abroad, I didn't have to purchase any more luggage. And then finally moving on to the last thing, checked bag. This gets placed underneath the plane in the cargo holder. Usually it's going to be a fee between $35 to $150. And again, it's going to be a large rolling suitcase that you're going to have.
thank you, Karina.
And then carry on tips. So it's going to be toiletries, liquids, gels, cream, that are 3.4 ounces or less. If you go to Walmart, if you go to Target, there are certain travel sections that have lotion, toothpaste, toothbrushes. That is where I personally went to shop right before going to Barcelona. So I really wanted to make sure that I was compliant, that nothing would get thrown away. I wouldn't waste money. So just always look at the products that you're going to bring and make sure that they're 3.4 ounces or less.
That's in your carry-on, remember. So anything larger than that, let's say you can't live without a particular shampoo or something that might not be available abroad, you can put that in your check bag. This is just your carry-on.
Yes, exactly. Just for your carry-on. And then electronics are going to be packed near the top of your bag, so that way it could be removed easily. You won't have to be digging through it to find your charger, to find your laptop. So that way it's more seamless. Just make sure it's easily accessible at the top of your bag. Keep an eye on small electronics. AirPods, for example, they're very small. They could get lost. Maybe you put it in your pocket, your jacket. So just make sure that you're always keeping an eye on it and it's somewhere that you know it is. Personal, this is super great. Refillable water bottles, eco-friendly and also cost-friendly. Everybody knows or has heard that a bottle of water at the airport is pretty pricey. It could be somewhere around $4, $5, even $6 sometimes. So bring a water bottle so that way you can have it always with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Karina. Well, that's not great. Our answers are there. From the last time we did the presentation, it was supposed to be a quiz of like the things that are not allowed on your carry-on. But the surprise is ruined. Pepper spray is not allowed in your carry-on. In fact, it's not legal in many countries, in Spain included. I don't know about Japan, so don't take that. But you can take disposable razors and nail clippers on your carry-on. And the reason that you are allowed to take battery banks in your carry-on is because it's actually safer in your carry-on. Battery banks have a history of potentially like exploding when exposed to like cabin pressure changes and stuff like that. Not very, very often, actually very rarely. But if that were to happen, it's easier to have it in carry-on so that they can deal with an emergency rather than in the cargo hold, which would be almost impossible to deal with. So those were our little quiz questions. Any questions on what you can maybe or cannot have in a carry-on? Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about luggage safety. I wanted to let you know that there are some luggage locks you can buy. They have to be TSA compliant because if TSA wants to search your bag, the little locks that you can buy like anywhere really, Walmart, wherever, they must have like a master key so that they can open them. It's nice to have, especially when you're gonna have like roommates. You can use your luggage with locks on as like a personal secure storage kind of place in your room. But if you don't have a digital tracker like an AirTag or the Smart Tag is like the Samsung version of it, or a Tile, it might be a good idea to have and put it somewhere in your luggage in case it does get lost. You'll have a kind of a closer idea of where it might be, but it's definitely not a requirement. What is great is that when you check in, the airline will provide you with a little sticker. They're going to put one sticker with a barcode and a number on your luggage, and the second sticker, sometimes they'll put it like on your boarding pass or in your somewhere on the back of your passport, somewhere random. Sometimes it's just nice to take a picture of that in case the sticker falls off. You always have that barcode and number that can help you track your luggage. And again, remember I told you when we were looking for that pretend flight to Barcelona, I was trying to find flights that were either, well, you can't fly nonstop to Barcelona from Arizona, but the least amount of stops as possible, because it's very possible that you might make it onto your next flight, but your luggage might not, right? And we'll talk about what to do in cases of lost luggage here in a minute. We also want you to make sure you know how to identify your luggage. Luggage looks very similar. A lot of them are just black and got wheels, right? So grab some luggage tags from the study abroad office so that you can identify it. There's also some people like will put scarves or some sort of something to tie on so that they can just take a look and it's they know it's theirs. And then finally take a picture of your luggage. And Karina, quick question. Can you see and hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. My internet is just funny. And finally, I wanted to talk a little bit about what you should include in your luggage tag. Of course, your name, a phone number where you can be reached. But keep in mind, when you arrive to, let's say, Barcelona or Japan, you might not have access to your US number. So it might be a good idea also put an emergencies contact information. like your parents or a significant other or whatever. And the only reason that you would ever even need this is in case your luggage is lost, the airline can reach you. And an email. So if you do lose your luggage, keep an eye on that phone number and that email, because that's how the airline's going to reach you. Do not include your home address, because it is just a potential security risk, and we just want to stay away from that. Right. And I really love this meme that Karina found, because just be careful not to leave your stuff unattended at the airport. There's signs everywhere not to do that, because of obvious reasons. But then I've seen very young college-age students one time go into the bathroom and they left their luggage with their passport right on top, because I guess they didn't want to take their luggage into the bathroom. And don't do that. That's very unsafe. Even if you need snacks, take your stuff with you. And I figured that a lot of you might be leaving out of the Phoenix airport because we saw that the prices is a little cheaper. Monique, do you know if you'll be leaving out of the Phoenix airport as well, or are you maybe thinking about it?
I'm not sure. I just looked at Tucson. I can go ahead and check for Phoenix, but if it's cheaper, I'll probably do it.
No worries. I was just curious because with Phoenix, I wanted to show you like a sample airport map. And this is really good to know. Just some fun facts about the airport is the airport code is PHX. And then apparently Phoenix doesn't have a Terminal 1 or Terminal 2 because they were demolished in the 90s. So I wanted to talk a little bit about terminals versus gates. So terminals are usually divided into domestic and international terminals. So specifically for Phoenix, Terminal 3, which is over here, is where domestic flights come in and out of. So if you're flying from Phoenix to LA, you're going to be leaving out of Terminal 3, and on your way back, you're going to be landing in Terminal 3. If you are flying from Phoenix to London, you're going to be traveling out of Terminal 4 because that is the international flight. So in my pretend flight plan I went from Phoenix to, what was my layover, Karina? Do you remember? Was that London?
Yeah, London.
It was London. So I would be going to Terminal 4 for that flight to London. But if I was going to Phoenix to Atlanta to then Barcelona, that first leg of my flight is technically a domestic flight because I'm flying Phoenix to Atlanta. So I actually would probably be flying out of Terminal 3. So, and each terminal has gates, and that's the area where you go and board your flight. So within every terminal, there's gates. And the gates are usually broken up by airlines. So that might be, this one might be American, this one might be Delta, and so on and so forth. And also a really key thing to note is that there might be like a huge space between terminals. Sometimes you might have to get on a little shuttle or like a little tram or something to get from Terminal 3 to Terminal 4. I believe it's like a little tram in Phoenix. So just keep an eye out and keep that potential distance in mind. And also download your airline app. I can't tell you how important that is because the airline app will have an airport map for you. And sometimes even instructions on how to get from like say Terminal 3 to Terminal 4. And it's just so helpful to know that in advance. Any questions on like airport like layouts or anything like that? I would say the last thing I wanted to mention is when you are arriving at the airport, usually domestic flights is 2 hours before and international flights is 3 hours before. I will be honest, like Tucson Airport, if you fly out of Tucson, 2 hours is like more than enough. Phoenix, I would probably say 2.5 hours is probably acceptable. If you're ended up like in the big airports like LAX, LA, or the big JFK airport in New York, that is for sure a 3-hour arrival. So it just kind of depends, but the typical recommendation is 3 hours. That's what I stick to because I don't mess around on fly days. I do not want to miss my flight. So that's the best advice I can give you for arrival at the airport. And we have an example of this.
Everybody moved on. Help, I'm
Who?
still at the restaurant.
Mr. Flight.
Still sitting in a corner I haunt. Cross
They
legged in
decided
the
to do
dim light. They say
the viral airport theory trend that's apparently trending on TikTok right now, where they're just telling people to show up at the airport 20 minutes before their flight. And it is a very bad idea. Do not do that because like you can probably like look on TikTok and just look up airport theory and see plenty of videos of people missing their flight. So
Mhm.
don't. All right. Go. Do you want to cover checking in, Karina?
Yeah, so checking in, international flights require that you check in at the desk. Instead of those little kiosks, those little computers over there, it's just best that you head straight there. Sometimes there'll be a line, so that's why Daphne was saying it's best to arrive early, not mess around with that. 3 hours before an international flight is key. So once you're there at the desk, you are going to hand them your passport, drop off your bags. It's going to get weighed, and then get your boarding pass and your luggage tracking sticker. So this is really important to take a picture of that tracking sticker because that is how you're going to know where your luggage is. So take a picture, put it in a safe spot. And then after that, you're going to proceed to security. You could ask at the desk, like, hey, where's the closest security line? There are multiple, so just make sure that you are talking to people and asking questions. When you are in security, make sure that you have your boarding pass ready, as well as your passport available. Also, there is going to be monitors. So what you see here on the right screen where it says departures, there's going to be a lot of those around the airport, just letting you know the location, the time, the gate that you're going to be going to, as well as the status. So if it's boarding, you got to run. If it's the gate is opening, maybe you could take a nice little jog there, and then delayed or canceled.
Please do that.
Mhm.
I wanted to also mention what's really nice is that like if you are at the gate and you need to go to the restroom, they have announcements in the restroom. So just like listening out for those announcements too is very helpful.
And this is going to be our sample boarding pass, just to kind of get straight into it. In the corner here, you're going to see group 4. That is going to be your boarding group. So I recommend, Daphne and I both recommend that you check in as soon as possible. You have a chance of getting into a sooner boarding group. The benefits of getting into boarding group 2 or 3 is that you'll have space in that overhead bin because it tends to fill up. Another thing to note is right above that, you're going to see the gate. So gate B10 and terminal 1, that information is going to be right there. As well as to the right of it is the flight. So you're going to see AA and then the numbers. That is going to be what you are going to share with your family members and say, hey, this is my flight. I won't be able to text you. Just use this number and you'll know where I am. So that is very helpful for loved ones. And then as well to the right of that is going to be your seat number. When you're walking through the plane, you'll see just the different numbers and the letters. So don't worry there, as well as the boarding time. I do want to mention there is small letters underneath that says departing at 8:20. Do not miss your boarding time. I would recommend 30 minutes before your boarding time, but Daphne would probably recommend something else. She never misses a
I
flight.
recommend an hour.
She recommends an hour. And so those are a few things, as well as the in-flight services. So you'll see there's a little Wi-Fi icon, but typically you'll see on your own boarding pass, there could be meals included, or maybe movies. So that is how you check what your flight is offering. Am I missing anything else, Daphne?
Yeah, so as far as meals on international flights, they're typically provided.
Mhm.
So and you can ask for like if you have dietary restrictions, you can ask for like a vegetarian meal and those kinds of things. And then this is very small letters, but they will shut the gate 15 minutes before departure. So at 7 a.m., this gate is shutting. And if you are not there, they at before 7 a.m., they won't let you on. Even if you just like ran through the airport, it's like those dramatic scenes in the movies where they won't let you on. So any of this information. Moving on to security.
Yeah, so security, you just want to make sure that you're looking for signs all throughout the airport. They're going to say toss any liquids, remove electronics from your bag. So that is what we mean by look for signs, and listen for instructions. Like Daphne was saying, they do have speakers in the restroom and throughout the whole airport. So just make sure you're very aware, of what's going on. Another thing to note, when you are going through security, you're going to make sure that you remove any extra articles. So like my watch, my bracelet, as well as AirPods if you have them, jackets, hats, belts, shoes, all of this is going to have to come off. And then you're going to have to take out your laptops and tablets prior to going into the scanner. And then here you could see find an open tray station, remove those articles, and then wait for instructions to enter the scanner. And yeah, that is going to be the rundown of security. And we have a few questions for you guys. So you forgot to take off your belt at security. What happens next? Is it A, it gets confiscated? B, you hold up the line while doing an awkward shuffle? Or you're a criminal and you go straight to jail? Does anyone have any guesses on that? Feel free to type it in the chat or just say it out loud.
Is it A?
Let's see. It's actually B. So it's just gonna be a little awkward moment. And you're just gonna have to just maybe get a stern talking to.
But other things might be confiscated. A belt is not considered like a deadly weapon. One time I had like a wine opener confiscated because it has that little, little blade. And they won't allow that on the plane at all. Of course, I should have known better. So most of the time they, if it's something that you just need to take off your watch or jewelry, they make you put it in the tray, but they won't take it.
And then, so this one is kind of a little bit of a interesting question. Which items have TSA confiscated in real life? Is it A, a chainsaw, B, a bag of snakes, C, exotic fruits, or D, all the above? I see Monique already answered in the chat, and Monique says D.
Monique
And
is
she's
100%.
right.
People are creative with what they try to bring through airport security. Most of the time, actually, the number one most confiscated thing at airports security is actually liquids above 3.4 ounces. And they just make you throw those away. But I'm sure they make you throw away fruits too. I've lost a couple mangoes and avocados before. Should have known better. All right. So, do you all have any questions before we move on for like security? That's something that we kind of all like to make fun of, and there's a bunch of memes for TSA and security. But is there any questions or like big concerns that you have about how that process works or how it looks? This could be an intimidating experience at the airport. Sometimes like you might forget you have a bobby pin, and when you go through like in your hair or something in your pocket, and then all of a sudden this horrible alarm goes off, and it can be stressful, but just always be patient, always be kind. At the end of the day, these are people trying to keep you safe, trying to do their job, and listening and following the instructions calmly will go a long way, rather than getting angry, for
Exactly.
example. We wanted to talk a little bit about some general tips for success. So again, at the gate, I recommend getting there as soon as you can. You can shop and eat, but stay at the nearby one, like the stuff in your terminal. Don't be like, oh, there's an In-N-Out in Terminal 3. I wonder if I can make it. You know, maybe, but maybe not. So stay nearby. Definitely use the restroom before boarding. It's hard to it takes a while for everybody to get in their seats. So if you have to use the restroom, there's traffic on the plane initially, and it's hard to get to the restroom. And then you can check your connecting flight status just to make sure to see if it's delayed or anything like that. Sometimes by the time you check in and you get to your gate, let's say you're at gate B10, all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, my gate changed. And sometimes that happens. So just keeping an eye to make sure that your gate didn't change and updates didn't happen. Keep on hand your passport, your boarding pass, your cell phone, those kinds of things at all times. Well, I mean, obviously your toiletries are going to be in your carry-on, but just general advice, dress wisely. Of course, if you're going through security, you don't want to take a bunch of jewelry because you're going to be setting off the metal detector, taking things off, those kinds of things. So I'm always cold on airplanes. So I always wear like a zip up hoodie that is easy to take on and off. I wear like shoes that are easy to take on and off. Wouldn't want to wear like boots that have like a million laces, right? Because you have to take those off. So just that's what we mean by dress wisely and comfortably. For those of you going to Barcelona, you might very well have a 9-hour flight. So you don't want to be in like super tight like jeans or something comfortable. Pack light because you're going to have to carry all your stuff. Nobody's going to do it for you. And also you don't want to get charged for extra weight. And then if you can get an earlier morning flight, that's always best. Because when there's delays with one flight at the beginning, it's like a domino effect at the airport. Since that flight is delayed, then it just slowly kind of incrementally, it's like when you go to the doctor, one delay kind of sets off a domino effect. And so the earlier flights have a less possibility of having delays, just simply because of that.
Exactly.
Lines and just be kind. Everybody is probably running on very little sleep, very little food, kind of grumpy, but just be patient and as nice as possible. You're probably going to be doing a lot of standing around and waiting at an airport, and so is everybody else. And don't ever be afraid to ask, like the people at the gates or airport employees. Everyone is usually very kind and willing to help.
So in this slide, I'm going to be kind of covering just the boarding process and in-flight essentials. So again, stay close to your gate, listen for instructions. Once your boarding group is called, you're going to look for your seat and get comfy. So make sure that when you find your seat, it's going to be on your boarding pass, whether it's physical or it's digital. And then you're going to place your carry-on in your overhead bin, personal under the seat. And then meals and drinks are usually included in your long haul flights. This last kind of box that we have here is about the overhead storage. So what happens if the plane runs out of overhead bin storage and space, and you have to check your carry-on? So it is going to arrive with your checked bag at no extra cost. So this does happen a lot, and this actually happened to me. I was a little afraid, but it ended up being just fine. Just make sure that you take everything that you would need out of it, like medications, documents, or other essentials.
Yeah, and it does happen a lot, and that's the benefit of being in an earlier priority boarding group. Oh, I wanted to talk a little bit. I know we have only 2 minutes, but this is so key information. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about like the passenger rights that you have as a traveler. And the first thing, since we were on the topic of luggage, I'm actually going to start with this one. Airlines have a responsibility to get your luggage to you eventually. luggage gets lost, unfortunately, but fortunately, it's not as common as you may think. So most likely you will be okay, but in the case that your luggage does get lost, you would actually have to file a claim on the airline website. And it's usually the luggage is actually gonna probably show up to you the next day or something like that. Usually it's only a couple of days that luggages are lost. However, they are required to deliver the luggage to you if it does get lost. So let's pretend, Connor, you show up in Barcelona, but your luggage doesn't. File the claim, and then the airline is going to get back to you and say, hey, Connor, we have your luggage. We have it at the airport. We can hold it here if you want to come and get it. Or they can actually deliver it to your address or to your school. So depending on where you are, right? And so every once in a while, I have had students that their luggage took 2 weeks to arrive, for example. That student obviously had to purchase clothes, had to purchase, toothbrush, toothpaste, like all their essentials. And if that happens, she obviously filed a claim, but she also saved her receipts. And they reimbursed her for there's every airline's a little different, but they reimbursed her and they have limits and stuff, but they gave her money back because she saved her receipts and filed a claim. Eventually her suitcase got there, which is really great. Also, sometimes what happens, let's say you buy that flight to Barcelona, and then all of a sudden you get an email, I think it was American Airlines, from American Airlines, like, hey, your flight has been changed by 30 minutes. Okay, and then a couple days later, your flight has been changed by 3 hours. And it's like, okay, now it's starting to be inconvenient. And then all of a sudden, like your flight is now totally different, 6 hours difference than what you originally bought. This is the airline making these changes. So if you buy an international flight and the airline changes your flight by more than 6 hours, you're entitled to make your own changes, essentially. So for domestic flights, if it's more than 3 hours, international 6 hours, if they change your airport, so all of a sudden you bought a flight from Phoenix, but they're like, oh, actually now you're leaving out of Tucson. They can't do those kinds of things without allowing you to change your ticket with no cost to you. Also, if you bought a nonstop flight and it's all of a sudden has a layover, that's the same thing. So if there's any significant delay to your flight, you actually have the right to rebook your flight for a more convenient time or a closer airport or a nonstop flight. So back to my pretend flight to Barcelona out of Phoenix. It sounded like maybe, Monique, this applies to you too. It sounds like maybe you all live in Tucson, but you're willing to drive to Phoenix to save some money. And all of a sudden, I always take a screenshot of my original flight. All of a sudden, with all these little bits and pieces of changes that airlines send you, if it totals up to more than 6 hours, call them up and be like, you know what, those changes don't work for me. I'd rather leave out of this flight from Tucson, Arizona, and have your flight plan ready, and they will change you to that flight with no cost. So all of a sudden you get a cheaper flight out of Tucson. So I've done this before and booked the flight out of Phoenix, hoping for these changes so I can get a flight out of Tucson. That's worked for me once. So kind of keep an eye on this, because obviously airlines don't advertise this. They don't want you to know this. And so when you call, you might get some pushback. If like you call because there's been significant changes or delays to your flight, they might like say, no, you don't get to pick, or, oh no, you might have to like ask to talk to somebody like a supervisor, or even sometimes hang up and call again. You'll get a totally different person who might just be like, okay, I know that I have to do this for you. So the key is to find a new flight that you would want, do the work for them, make it easier for them, and call the airline. So this is really, really key information about passenger rights. And I know we're at time, so out of respect for your time, I wanted to kind of cut it to close here. And I know we covered so much information, so I wanted to give you an opportunity to ask any questions that you might have.
I don't have any questions yet, but if I do, is there a way, like, can I just like email you?
Absolutely. We'll be sending the slides and our notes to everybody who attended in the recording link as well. So you'll have my
Thank
email
you.
soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sure I'll have some.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for being here. And so, Connor, did you have a question?
Yeah, this is kind of off topic. Maybe Karina could answer this, but did your coordinator kind of give you emails like weekly, or did he kind of like start sending you emails towards the like toward
Yeah.
coming up?
Yeah, so like the sooner that you are closer to leaving and going on your trip, then you'll get more frequent emails and instructions. I was a little bit nervous before because I was really eager to know what I'm getting myself into. But a lot of the itineraries are not set up yet. So yeah, just be ready for them to send you a bunch of emails when it's closer to that date.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
That was a good question. How about you, Monique? Are you feeling ready?
Yeah, I guess I kind of wish I knew who my roommate was, but other than that, I'm pretty ready.
Great.
Nice.
Good to hear. Well, I hope some of the information that you all learned today was helpful. Feel free to log off if you need to log off. We have just a couple more slides. I'm not going to talk about this in-flight stuff, but I will send you this slide because it does have some important information of what you should have on you on the plane. But I did want to talk a little bit about some arrival at your final destination type of topics. Karina, if you want to take that away really quick.
Yeah, really quickly. So as soon as you get there, just make sure that you connect to the airport Wi-Fi, call or text your loved ones. You should have WhatsApp downloaded, just in case. So another thing is going to be arrival and immigration. Make sure that as soon as you deplane, that you're following the signs to passport control, which could be called immigration, depends on the country. And then make sure you have those documents that you printed out, a visa if you need one, as well as your passport. All of those things you should have in your hand. Questions that they might ask you depending on who you get. Why are you here? For how long will you be here? And then maybe the address of your school or accommodation.
Yeah. And after passport control, you will probably head to customs. And that's just so that they can see the kinds of things that people are bringing into a country normally. You won't have to declare anything. It's usually like people who are bringing like large sums of money or alcohol or those kinds of things, a lot of jewelry. So those are things that you all probably won't have to worry about claiming anything. So sometimes you might just pass through customs and not even realize it. And that's okay. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. So after you go through customs, you will be heading on to baggage claim. In your app, it'll tell you what carousel number to go to. So then you go to that carousel number, pick up your bag, make sure it is your bag. And that's when you go through customs. And this is where you can no longer have if you got any like fruit on the plane or anything for snacks, you got to throw those away. You might have to fill out a form to claim things. Most likely you won't. And finally, look for signs for exits. If it's really helpful, like if you know the word for exit in Spanish or Japanese, a lot of airports have signs also in English, but maybe not. Then, as Karina mentioned previously, there's going to be taxis, there's going to be public transportation to get you to where you need to go, usually your accommodations. And then, of course, usually airports have free Wi-Fi because upon landing, you might not have phone service, right? You might not have data. So connect to the Wi-Fi. And then if you do end up taking a taxi, and I totally agree with Karina, I usually, just because you've been traveling for like 20 hours or whatever it is, you're tired, trying to figure out a train in a new country in a different language is hard. So usually on arrival, I do take taxis, but just make sure they are the licensed taxis. They'll have like official logos, or maybe just Google what do official taxis in Japan or Spain look like. And those are the ones that you want to make sure you ride on. And it's not necessarily because the unlicensed ones are unsafe. It's usually because they're kind of just pricier and they'll try to take advantage of people. So keep that in mind. And finally, I wanted to also talk a little bit about some upcoming sessions that we will be having, other topics that we'll be talking about. So if you're still looking to get more information to be as prepared as possible, we have other presentations coming up on these topics. And on the previous slide, I want you all to know that we're going to send links to all of you. Like, this is a really good like price tracking websites that I use, these three, and there's travel tips on this one. This is a really good website for you to get used to the jet lag and adjust your sleeping schedule so that you're ready to go as soon as you get to your destination country. And this Department of Transportation customer service dashboard will show you exactly what every airline provides as like customer service, like those rights that we were talking about earlier. So these are really good websites to know. We'll be sending those along. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop my share and open it up again one last time for questions. And if you all don't have anything, I wanted to wish you a wonderful weekend and thank you again for being here. But me and Karina are going to hang out a little bit longer if you have some questions.
I think I'm all good. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, you're
You're
welcome.
welcome.
I'll be sending emails soon.
I guess I did have a question. I wanted to, okay, thank you. I wanted to know, in drop-ins, can we just come in and ask questions, or is that the only way? Is there another way, like we could call and just talk to someone over the phone, or, just to ask like questions?
It depends. So drop-ins are a little bit more for students that kind of are earlier on in the process. So now that you have already committed to a program and know that you're going on a particular program, so you have your coordinator is probably your main point of contact at this point, which I believe you're doing the internship, right?
Yes.
So that would be Michelle. And I would recommend you, have you had an opportunity to schedule an appointment with her?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't, just that I just wanted to talk to someone who's been where I've been. That's what I was
Oh,
wanting. Like,
Yeah,
like,
to get in contact with somebody who's already done kind of what you're looking to do.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, so I would
yours
say,
is a little hard, Karina. I'm so sorry to interrupt because she's doing the new internship program. So we haven't had any students go on that program yet. So that's a little tricky. Normally, we would be like, reach out to your coordinator and we can connect you with previous students. Usually that's not an issue, but this is literally a brand new program that you're doing that we've never ran before. So we have like Karina here who's been to Barcelona. We have other programs in Tokyo. So you can talk to students that have been to that country. We can connect you with, but we don't have students that have been to that exact program yet.
Okay. Okay, well that makes sense, because that's why I was like, it seems like no one's ever done it. Now it makes sense.
You're right. It is
you're the
brand
first.
spanking new. So I hope that like, did you apply to be like a social media ambassador or anything? Like have you received information about that?
Yes, yeah, I did. I wasn't
Okay.
sure. Speaking of, like, I don't know, I just wasn't sure. I would love to do it. I just wasn't sure about the hours, and since we're working, I was like, I don't know. I was just nervous.
That's okay. And that's okay, if it ends up not working out for you. But that's one of the reasons we do that kind of program is that we find that just like students want to know more about where they're going. And since this is a new program, that would be a really good opportunity because next year there's going to be a student sitting in your same exact position, same exact shoes, wondering the same exact things. And so if they have someone who went before who did the social media stuff, that would be something that we could point them in that direction at the very least, so that's the only reason I brought that up. So yeah, but I mean, someone like Nicole Stab is the coordinator for Asia typically. She's been traveled extensively through Asia, and so has Michelle. So they're just both good resources generally for asking questions about like general travel as well. It doesn't have to be just like program specific, if that makes sense.
Okay, I'll definitely reach out to them then.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for being here again. And you know, me and Karina are always here to help. And if we don't know the answer to your question, we can at least help, you know, direct you to the right person.
Okay, alrighty. Thank you so much. Have a good
Okay.
rest of your day. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a great weekend.
You too.